Shreveport City Councilwoman LeVette Fuller is here. You did not.
Are we starting?
Yes, ma'am. This is it. You need more coffee? You doing okay?
No, I'm doing good.
Okay. Did you hear? You did not hear Mayor Perkins' last hour.
No, I had to get ready to be here.
Were you aware of the coming meetings that he referred to? The mayor, the sheriff's office, Shreveport Police, maybe state police?
He mentioned it yesterday during our meeting, during his comments.
What did he say to you guys that might have been at variance or in agreement with what he said to me today?
All I know is that there's this meeting with all of these different members of the first responder community to talk about crime, talk about guns, talk about getting guns off of the street. That was one of the main things he brought up. The sheriff, state police, etc.
He sort of implied this morning that part of this meeting will be to investigate, if you will, to look at the possibility of bringing in outside law enforcement agencies to supplement the Shreveport police. You got any thoughts on that? What do you think?
I think that it could be a very good thing. I think we're at a point right now where we need more presence on the streets. But I also think that we need to be cognizant of what the consequences are. We have to make sure that every report that gets filed.
Pardon me just a second. Right now, the consequences are that a postman got shot. So,
correct. Now, in that case, someone was arrested. Someone is going to also see some federal charges. But in this city, we've done sweeps for guns. We've gotten guns off the streets. We've done the thing like on The Wire where they do the big dope on the table. We have the press conference about how many arrests were made, what kind of stings we've had, all of that. But the issue is that if you're arrested and then you get put back out and there's no real consequences for it, then you're not really going to care. It's just like you're going to camp for a couple of days and then you're back out on the street. If every report that's filed isn't filed good enough for the DA to feel like he's got a case that he can actually like see some real consequences and actually get somebody sentenced, then we don't have a full cycle. Does that make sense?
Do you have any problem because during, as I mentioned to the mayor, this was all sort of brought up during the latter days, if you will, of the Tyler administration. Mm-hmm. And it was, in fact, at one point, Sheriff Prater had offered his assistance, mm-hmm. and that was met with a lot of blowback by the Shreveport Police Department. What Mayor Perkins had said was, I haven't heard that from the Shreveport Police in sort of floating the test balloon, if you will. Do you anticipate, do you think he was right?
I think that the real issue is that we're hemorrhaging officers. And if you bring in other people, but you don't actually deal with the issues in-house, it doesn't really matter. So the time that's going to be spent, maybe I can't speak for, I can't think like a police officer to that extent, but I would imagine that if there was a negative, if people saw it negatively, is because they're saying we need to fix the issues we've got, instead of focusing on how we're going to work with these other groups. What
I heard most from Shreveport police officers going back to the Tyler administration when bringing in outside agencies was being considered, the sentence, the phrase, what I heard most was, we don't need them if you would let us do our jobs.
Well, then there you go. That sounds about right. And I think that part of the reason that people are like leaving the force, like before they've even made it a couple of years, is there's a lot of crime. The pay is bad. They can get paid more in another market. That's part of it. But also people will stay in a job if they feel like they have job satisfaction. We've got to get our leadership right.
What do you think a Shreveport policeman means? And if there's any listening, text me your answer to this because I'd like to know. 318-392-1884, Shreveport Security Systems text line. When they say to me, let us do our jobs, we could do the job if you, I suppose they mean the city, I don't know. Let us do our jobs. What do you as a council person who's been on the job a very short amount of time?
I think it means I need to ask more questions. I can't answer that for you. When they say let us do our job, we need to figure out where the disconnect is. Where's the disconnect between them being
you
able
think it's
to
things like
enforce the laws?
Do you think it's things like the no pursuit policy
Perhaps.
and things like that where they feel they are not allowed to when you said enforce the laws, that they feel they are not allowed to enforce the laws to the full measure of what they think they should be allowed to do?
I think I need more. I think that we need to have a more lengthy discussion with them directly.
What else?
But I will say this. It's hard for an interim police chief to do his job when he's waiting to find out if he's actually going to be able to get the full job. Oh, I imagine that Ben Raymond is doing the best he can right now, but he can't. He's not doing the job like he would if he was permanently in that position.
I know you pretty well. You're pretty smart. You wouldn't have said that if you didn't think that he was.
I think he might be holding back. If I were in his position and thought that I would be going back to whatever position I was in before, I'd be holding off.
Pardon me. Did you say what you said because that's what you think or because that's what you hear?
It's what I think. I think that he might be holding back a little bit. I think that he's doing a pretty good job. And I feel like he's got a good chance at having the full job. But what if you didn't get it? Like, what does that do to your career? What does that do to your relationships with your colleagues? I wouldn't be doing anything too terribly drastic right now in that position.
Before we go to break, what do you hear about that? I mean, what do you hear behind the scenes?
I mostly hear
curtain?
positives about him. I do. I hear that a lot of people feel like he's pretty good police. There are some critics out there for sure.
What do you hear about what the mayor thinks?
I don't hear about what the mayor thinks.